One. Welcome to another segment of ROSAmerica Speaks. If you're new to our program, once a month we interview dynamic, inspiring educators and social justice activists who share their experience both inside and outside the classroom. Lisa and I are the co-founders. Lisa, raise your hand. We are the co-founders of ROSAmerica, which stands for Revealing Origin Stories of America. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that delivers professional development programs to help educators teach the complete version of the American story. And we do this by way of origin stories of people of color who've been huge contributors to our nation's history, but have been largely left out of school textbooks and curricula. For more information, you can visit our website, which is ROSAmerica, that's ROSAmerica.us.
Well, thank you, Shelly, for that description of who we are. I am so pleased to introduce our friend Cynthia Diaz today. Cynthia is an organizer for the ACLU of Arizona's Demand to Learn campaign, which is aimed at ending exclusionary practices that push children out of Arizona classrooms. Cynthia was born and raised in South Phoenix. She's a first-generation American, daughter of immigrants. She has been involved with social justice organizing, such as with Puente, Mecha de UAB, Derechos Humanos, Tucson, the Immigrant Student Resource Center at U of A, and most recently interned with the Center of Political Education in San Francisco, California. Cynthia is a graduate of the University of Arizona with a dual degree in Mexican American Studies and Latin American Studies with a minor in Leadership Studies and Practices. Cynthia, I'd like to ask you to share a little bit more about your background.
Thank you, Shelly and Lisa, for having me here tonight. Like you just said in my brief bio, I was born and raised in Phoenix, more specifically in South Phoenix, and my parents come from Southern Mexico. And so I was born in Phoenix with a mixed status family, meaning that some family members have citizenship and others do not. And it was until 2011 that I realized what that meant and how it could impact a family like mine. So in 2011, I was in high school, and um, there were a lot of news about immigration going into workplaces, going into public spaces, even raiding homes and houses. So at the time, I was aware that my mom was undocumented, but didn't know that she was at risk. And so it was until a Saturday morning that ICE showed up at our house and took my mom. And that experience just impacted my life, but just made me view the world differently. The fact that I was born in the US did not mean I felt like I belonged here. And so I knew it was wrong. I felt it in me. And so I spoke up about it. I spoke up about this specific experience of having my mom separated from our families as a high school student. That's when I joined as a activist with the focus on immigrant rights. And so I shared my story. I would be invited to marches, to protest, and I would share my story, what happened to me, because I was also aware I was not the only one in Arizona that was having loved ones or their family members separated by immigration law. So I graduated from high school in downtown Phoenix, very small high school. And I wanted my mom to be back to see me graduate high school because I'm her firstborn and very important for our family to continue education. So my mom did not make it back, and it was the next year, 2014, that I was already in Tucson at the University of Arizona, and I wanted to plug into the community. And so I met amazing people, amazing organizations in Tucson. And I think it was my first semester of college. I joined an organization that had a campaign to bring back families that were separated by immigration laws. So I signed up thinking of my mom and thinking of loved ones from families that I know. So I signed up to represent Arizona, and after a few months of organizing, talking to the media, talking to communities, getting people to care about this issue, in April of 2014, my mom was able to come back. And my
Oh,
mom came back because of this campaign. It was not
wow.
through the government, it was not because of the US immigration laws. It was literally because of the community that demanded our family to be reunited once again. And so this experience just made me realize the power of the people, the power of the community. Many, many people that do not know me personally or do not know my mom personally felt really strong to do something, whether it was an online petition or calling immigration center to release my mom. And so, because of this experience, I wanted to share my experience to others, especially young ones, to give them the hope that even if laws are against us, we as humans, we have rights. And I'm a US citizen, and I know, right, I have those rights, but even if you're not a US citizen, I've learned people have rights. People deserve dignity. Families deserve to be together. So that whole experience has made me who I am. And when I was in college, at first I was interested in public health. So I was interested in the medicine, maybe being a doctor,
Hmm.
but it was my first semester that I also took a Mexican American Studies class. I've never had a class like this before in high school or in elementary school, but I know I am Mexican American, so I was very intrigued to learn more about this side of the history. And after two classes, I was so um, ready to learn more. And so that's when I decided to major in Mexican American Studies. And I met amazing people, from classmates to professors to community members, that were really passionate about ethnic studies. And it was also my first year in Tucson that I learned that Mexican American Studies was illegal in 2010.
Hmm.
And I didn't know this in Phoenix, but the Tucson community was impacted by making Mexican American history illegal. So
Hmm.
that definitely caught my attention of why it's important to continue sharing the histories and the experiences, right? My experience, it's super recent, so I want people to know what the community was capable of.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. I mean, the fact that your mother was deported and you turned it into an opportunity for other people, to empower other people to who may have faced the same kind of situation. I mean, I can imagine most of us would be like in sorrow and grieving, and you took action. It's really, what an
I spoke
inspiring
up.
story.
Yeah, and
Uh,
was it SB 1070 that caused the sweep for ICE to
Yes.
come into your home?
Hmm.
Wow, yeah.
and that
And
bill
as
was
uh-huh.
repealed like in the last 5 years. I mean, it's been recent, right?
Yes, very recent. To that SB 1070 passed in 2010, the same year that Mexican American Studies was banned in Tucson.
And when was
So
it
we
repealed?
see we
Was
see that
repealed?
connection. There's parts of SB 1070 still in Arizona law,
Still on the
but
books.
the important part of discrimination of racial profiling
Yeah.
is not there.
So let's fast forward a little bit and talk to us about what drew you to the Arizona chapter of the ACLU, or just the ACLU in general, the American Civil Liberties Union, for those of us
Yeah.
viewing who may not know.
Yes, so now I am working as an organizer with this organization called American Civil Liberties Union of Arizona. And what drew me into this organization specifically is that it is nonpartisan. This organization focuses on the issues that is impacting the people in the communities. And so right before the ACLU, I was in San Francisco. So in San Francisco, I learned a lot from different groups that focused on different issues. And they were very nice and very patient in teaching me what I needed to learn, how to connect issues, how to be in solidarity with other issues that perhaps are not directly impacting my life, but still show that respect and that I care about their issues. And so that experience in San Francisco made me see how different issues that oppress people or that discriminate people connect. And so, although I started as an immigrants' rights activist, I believe if there's any policies or any law that is discriminatory against people, that needs to change. And so I came into the ACLU to work on a campaign called Demand to Learn. This
Mhm.
campaign focuses on students and the students' rights to be in school and to not be discriminated. And so, me growing up in South Phoenix, I had a lot of classmates that were first generation American, either their parents were immigrants or they were African American, so Black students. Most of our teachers were white, but that's how my classmates usually were Latino or Black. And as I went through eighth grade, that same school, I went from kinder through eighth grade. So as I graduate eighth grade, I did notice how most of the Black students did not graduate with us. In sixth grade, they were already being expelled or they were already being sent to juvenile hall. And so at the time, I didn't understand why. But now that I went through college, I went through ethnic studies, I learned from San Francisco. Now I understand a little more of how there are systems of oppression. There's laws and policies that oppress and discriminate certain people. And I learned that those are usually people of color, people of low income, even people with disabilities.
Mm.
And so I am advocating for students to stay in schools, but I also am working with parents, I'm working with teachers, and I'm working with just anyone who has the time and has the passion to speak up. Because of my experience, I know that one story, they're not the only ones. There's many other people going through similar struggles. And so the more we share stories, the more we share and raise awareness, that's how I believe we could reach change. And so that's how I joined the ACLU. And I've been here for 3 years. I've been learning a lot. I've been meeting other organizations in Arizona, but other outside of Arizona, just trying to think how we could do better in our education system.
So Cynthia, the work that you just described about keeping kids in school, in particular, Black students in school, that is all part of your Demand to Learn program that you're involved with, right?
Yes, on our website, demandtolearnaz.org, we have a little bit of statistics. And so we have a study that we did in Maricopa County, and it says which students are more likely to be suspended compared to their white peers. And we have Latino students are 6 times more likely, Black students are 8 times more likely, but at the highest, we have Native American students that go to schools close to the reservations.
What's the percentage of that one?
Yeah.
10
It's
times more likely.
Wow.
And a student with disability, twice as likely.
So this is interesting because one of the things I'm learning about with all the EDI, DEI types of training is, you know,
What is DEI for those that don't?
diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then the work that I'm involved in the arts and theaters, you hear acknowledgments spoken before a theatrical production takes place. We're hearing native lands acknowledgement. And some people are wondering why that is necessary. But what I just heard from you is that Native American students are in jeopardy in our schools at 10 times greater rate than say a white student. So if we begin to educate people about these disparities and the suppression, then those things can, well, they can be confronted and we can change them. But without education, we really can't do that. Anyway, that's just what's coming to me as you talked about those different population groups. I love the posters behind you.
Mhm.
Yeah, yesterday we actually had the opportunity to hear from a journalist who covered the boarding schools that Native American kids were forced to go to. You know, basically taken from their homes without
Mhm.
any, without hesitation, backed by some some kind of governmental policy, both in Canada and here in the States, and what it, how destructive it was. And I love what the journalist said. She said, she herself has never gotten a complete version of our country's story. And that's what we're trying to do with ROSAmerica. So people like you are uncovering things. I mean, I have to say that that's interesting to me to hear that statistic, that it's Native American students that are 10 times more likely to be suspended.
Mhm.
That's not, there's a stereotype in all of our minds, and that's not it. So that's interesting. Is there any background to that? Is there anything
Yes.
you can say about
Yes.
why that is?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So what we found, it's not necessarily the students that are quote unquote bad students.
Okay.
It's not the students, it's not the individual, it's the systems. And so we saw the ACLU noticed that the schools that are close to the reservations have zero tolerance policies,
Ah,
whereas other schools are not doing that anymore.
mhm.
Mhm.
Interesting. I know you and I have talked about, it was a story I told you of a student who, because of her skin color, was, attacked by racist, with racist comments. And so they took the boys who, who spoke the racial slurs and suspended them. And how there was no opportunity for education, no opportunity for deliberative conversations, no opportunity to, really unpack this and what prompted it. And I think without that, we just use these punitive measures, nobody learns anything. So
Mhm.
it's unfortunate. So speaking of schools and punitive actions, there's a bill that's I don't know if it's been signed into law yet. It's Senate Bill 2412, which basically prohibits teachers from talking about race if it looks like one race is superior to another race, which that in itself is difficult to ascertain. What does that mean exactly? But it basically, I think, in our minds, it censors teachers and students from talking freely about our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So what is the ACLU? Do you have a response? Does the organization have a response to this bill?
Yes. So the ACLU of Arizona, but other ACLUs around the country definitely have an eye on these type of bills. We're calling them the classroom censorship bills.
Mhm.
And we're calling them this because we believe that these bills don't just set back progress in addressing systemic issues, but they rob young people of an inclusive education. That's what we're calling it, an inclusive education. And these bills that are censoring are blatantly suppressing speech about race. And in Arizona, there were other laws that trying to pass that were trying to censor conversations and lessons about gender and sexual orientation. And so this is why we're calling them classroom censorship bills. And then we also acknowledge that because of the Black Lives Matter movement that sparked the country, so many people, young people all over the country acknowledge the realities of systemic racism that are still alive and well. And so this is why it's important more than ever to dismantle oppressive system, to pursue change, but to be transparent about our history, where what we've done and how we've come to where we are now.
Yeah,
And so the
like
ACLU, the ACLU believes that students of color, because this campaign is focused on students' rights, we believe that for students of color, the ability to talk and learn about the experiences and viewpoints of people of color and America's legacy in racism is critical to feeling connected and equally valued. Just like I said, I'm a first generation American, and the fact that my mom was separated from me, I did not feel valued, or I did not feel like I belonged in this country, even though I was born here. And so when I learned the histories of Mexican American studies in college, I felt so connected to the
Mm.
history, to the communities, to all the groups that have existed before me. And this is why I'm like so happy and so eager to continue the movement to bring on more people, young people, older people, to feel connected to the community that we're in.
So one of the things that has come into our understanding recently is some of the students that are in the schools today in K-12 education right now, their parents attended these boarding schools. This is not in the distant past. This is their parents that attended these boarding schools, which is by definition an institution of racism, because it was to erase their culture, erase their language, erase who they are and their identity. So in Canada, the last school closed in 1996.
Right.
It's just unbelievable. So just trying to get the information out to the average American that this is not distant rearview mirror. This is recent past, and we each have sort of a duty, an obligation to make sure we do better. And the only way we can do better is if we are educated about the truth of our past. So the work you're doing is so important. I wonder about lawsuits that the ACLU has been able to bring or to win, what that process is like, what's happened in the state of Arizona around lawsuits for education and the ACLU.
Yeah. So the ACLU, we have legal lawsuits, which we're mostly known for. We have policy, which is fairly new. And then we have advocacy, which I work with the community, I work to raise awareness. So in the legal side, the lawsuits, we have not filed any lawsuits. We've had warnings. And so we've sent letters warning school districts that they are violating federal or state law. So an example was from 2019. We were reached out by a parent in Yuma district that the student was being denied enrollment because the parent does not have an state issued ID. And the students are US born, and legally, the parents should not have to prove their citizenship. And so this was a violation of federal law and state law. And so the ACLU of Arizona drafted a letter that just reminded them what the law is. And if they did not change policy, then we would take another step. Fortunately, this district responded quickly. Right as students were enrolling, they changed their policy, and luckily they were able to let the family enroll. That first they pushed away, but later, after our letter, the family was able to enroll into this public school. And then that same letter made it to the hands of a news reporter, and a news reporter found out that Glendale Public School District also had this law that was violating federal law that was discriminating undocumented families. So that's one example
Great.
that we did,
Fabulous.
and most of our lawsuits, we we try to have big impacts, and so we do not take individual cases. And so this example, we were targeting a district, Yuma
Mhm.
district. And then in terms of our other departments, our policy departments, last year we had a win. We were successful in passing a bill into law. So it was the ACLU, but it was also another organization called Stand for Children, where we
Oh,
introduced this bill that would limit students from kinder through third grade from being suspended. There has to be very, very specific reasons to suspend these little students. And in addition to that, um, students under the age of 7 cannot be sent home. And so this is a state law and it affects all Arizona students. And so we're super happy that this
wow.
passed, because
Great.
before last year, we were hearing of kindergarteners being suspended, and they were mostly students of color, and they were mostly families of low income. And so it was a struggle for the families to have to pick up their little one once a week, or, it was
Well,
just
what were some of the
ridiculous.
reasons that they came up with for suspending a 5-year-old?
Right. Most excuses were that the student is disturbing the classroom.
So it's just a sort of generic. Wow.
Yes. A student, right. A kid being a kid.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it went from like not even send to the principal, or not even no interim steps, just kick them out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, we're reaching toward the end.
Yes.
It went fast.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want us to know about the work of the ACLU? Can people get involved? Can they get involved in the Demand to Learn program?
Yeah. Yeah. So the ACLU, it has other focuses. So besides the Demand to Learn campaign, which is focused on schools and students, we have another campaign called Smart Justice. That campaign's goal is to end mass incarceration. And then besides the two campaigns, we have other focuses in other issues such as LGBTQ rights and immigrant rights. And so we accept people of any background, any age, or any experience. We believe that in order to create change, we need people that are most impacted by discrimination or by injustice to lead us to the solution that is needed, whether it's through lawsuits, policy change, or advocacy. And so, an invitation to anyone and everyone to join us. It doesn't matter if you have time or don't have time, we would appreciate the support.
Oh, financial contributions are helpful too, right?
Of course, and
Yeah.
there's a way to donate. Yep.
Mhm.
Is that on your homepage? If we
Yes.
post it, okay, so it's easy to find.
We can post some links in the comments below where this ends up on Facebook so that
Yeah.
you can see all the different places.
So we will be posting this on Facebook, and so everyone can hear it. So thank you, Cynthia. It was really inspiring. Great to have you. We admire so much all the work you're doing, and I can see you in some elected office at some point, and not too in the not too distant future. I imagine that. I see that. So, well, thanks everyone. Actually, thank you all, the three of you. Everyone will see it in a little bit.
In a little bit.
By the way, we will be presenting to the staff at the ACLU on May 24th. So we're very much looking forward to that.
To our volunteers who
volunteers.
are teachers, community members. Yes.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. That should be great. So, all right. Well, thank you again, and look for this shortly. Take care, everyone.
For all you do, Cynthia.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.